Welcome to the Thriving Christian Artist, the podcast where we hope you connect with God to bust through the roadblocks that have held you back for years, create the work you love, and really live the life you know God created you to live as an artist in His kingdom. I'm Matt Thomas, your host. Let's get started. Well, hey, everybody, I'm so glad that you're with me on the podcast today. I've got my great friend, Shelly Hitz, all the way from Colorado. Shelly, I'm so glad that you're with me today on the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's incredible to be here.
I know it. It's fun. You were just at Gathering of Artisans and are planning to come to our mastermind event coming up in March. And it's always so fun to meet people that are just Facebook friends actually in person, you know? And so
I know, become face-to-face friends.
Exactly, real friends. So I know we got to share a meal with you and your mom. We were at Gathering, and it's just so neat to hear all the incredible things that God's doing in your life and the journey that He's brought you on. And I just thought for all of our listeners on the Thriving Christian Artist podcast, it'd be really encouraging to hear your story of really stepping out of the boat and pursuing everything that God's got for you. So are you up for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So, you know, you are involved. We have so many similarities, I guess, in that we're both creative and yet we're both entrepreneurs and that sort of thing. I love the way you have kind of worked to develop this beautiful ecosystem of your creativity where you're an entrepreneur selling your work, you're inspiring others, you're selling your artwork. I wonder, as you roll the tape back, you know, because everybody's got a backstory, how did all this even start for you? I mean, as a kid, were you creative, but you left it? Was there a roadblock that you encountered that kind of shut that down in you? Or just kind of take us through the story of where Shelley began on all this journey.
Yeah, so I've tried to think back and say, okay, was there something, you know, in my past? Like, I really wasn't one of those like naturally creative kids. And I did love to do the lettering and the bubble letters and the block letters, which now I'm a lettering artist. I got 100% in manuscript, you know, and handwriting in school. So those were clues that I'd become a lettering artist. But I was never like that kid that was like, you know, super creative. I was in music, I was in plays, I did stuff, but I went to medical school. I was, you know, in the left brain, like I excelled in math and science. And so, you know, the world tells you, you know, go and like be a doctor or a lawyer or this or that. And so I went to medical school and I became a physical therapist and I practiced for 12 years. And I thrived in that. You know, I did great. My patients loved me. I was able to share my faith and like really have opportunities to impact people's lives. But my husband and I were missionaries for 2 years in the country of Belize. And when we came back, we realized, you know, I think God has more for us to work together, to do more together. And it was in 2004, I started my very first website. And back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, was the internet even going in 2004? But
yeah.
It wasn't much, but it was there.
I know, HTML, baby.
That's right. Dreamweaver. Remember Dreamweaver?
Yeah. And so I started my very first side business. I'm just trying to think of, you know, Lord, how can I work from home and, you know, so we can do more ministry together and different things. And it just kind of one thing led to another. I mean, that's just kind of the way life works, right? And in 2008, or actually 2007, I started speaking with my husband to teens. He would take the guys, I would take the girls. And girls would just want to counsel with me and talk with me. And the next year, one of our friends showed us, he had self-published a book, print on demand. I was like, I could do this. Like,
this is amazing, right?
This is amazing. And like, it was really high quality. And so I thought, wow. I had started a website for teen girls in the past year. So all the content I had written over the past year while I was working full time, while I was taking every vacation to travel and speak, I didn't have time, but I found time to write these articles to help these teen girls. Well, I took all those articles, I repurposed it, put it into a book with a Bible study at the end. And that became my very first book, Mirror, Mirror, Am I Beautiful? And it really led me down a path of writing and publishing books.
Wow.
So by 2011, you know, we had just decided, you know, I was gradually building my side business, and I went from full-time as a physical therapist to part-time. Then I went to part-time to temporary on call. and they were still using me, part-time. I just didn't have benefits and everything, but I was holding on to this job,
my security, right?
Yeah. And also like my identity, like,
Yeah.
people would instantly respect me when I told them my career and what I did. And, I worked hard for that career and to pass the licensure board and all that. But anyways, so I was working temporary on call, but I wasn't ready to give it up yet. And it was almost like, I tell people, it's like, God just pushed me off the edge of the cliff.
For your own good, right?
Yeah. And it was time. It was God's time. It wasn't me trying to make it happen. It was me actually trying to not move forward. And the Lord was just kind of like, okay, let's do this. And my husband's a visionary dreamer, and he'd always wanted to live in an RV, travel around the country. And we thought, okay, we'll get an RV, we'll travel around, speak. I have this side business online. I can work anywhere I have internet connection.
Right.
So I quit my job. It was in September of 2011. So 7 years ago, I completely resigned my job. People thought I was crazy because it was in the middle of a downturn of the economy. They're like, you're giving up this incredible job. And we rented out our house. We set off in this tiny Toyota RV, 135 square feet of living space. And we were going to live the dream, right?
Wow.
But it didn't turn out like I thought. And, sometimes when you take a step of faith, like, God he sees the big picture. I like to think of it as a puzzle. Like, we just have one piece of the puzzle. He has the box top. He sees like how it's going to work out and all of the things. And so we're sitting in the RV by January, and all of the speaking engagements dried up, that we were not getting booked. Yeah, I mean, that was how we were planning on, earning an income. And my husband had done this full time for like 6 years, and it had been steady. And it was like, it just stopped. And we're sitting here, in the RV, looking at each other like we have a little bit of savings. We're like, what are we going to do? Like, I quit my job. And I was like, God,
don't you know the plan, right?
Yeah, what's going on here? But I remember it like it was yesterday. It was January 1st, 2012. And it was right when Kindle books were really taking off. The KDP Select program just had launched in December. And I got an email about a course on creating a Kindle book series and all of this stuff. And we had Kindle books, but I told my husband, what do you think? It was like $77. And he's like, go for it. That year, we wrote and published 23 books. We launched our publishing company, Body and Soul Publishing. We started earning thousands of dollars a month in royalties from our books. And God totally changed the trajectory of what we thought we were going to do, traveling and speaking. We sold the RV. We moved to Colorado Springs. And then I started coaching authors and doing what I'm doing today. But had I not ever taken that step of faith and been in that really confusing season of like, what's going on? I wouldn't have ever had the space and the time to write all those books and to do all the things that I'm now doing today.
That is so incredible. And the thing that I'm just stirred with as I listen to your story, because it reminds me of mine in the fact that the thing that God is using the most in my life now was the thing that I had no clue that he had even had a plan for. He's using like my baskets and my sculpture work that I do creatively. That was a creative outlet that I had pursued in my life, but I had no agenda over. It was just something that I loved to do. And I think back with you and working with these teenage girls and speaking into their life, that was something that you really felt passionate about, but you didn't really have an agenda with per se. Mm-hmm. Talk about that, I guess, just from your perspective. Do you see that correlation, and how do you think God used that beautiful place of connection that he had with you in those creative pursuits to really be the thing that launched you into the marketplace?
Yeah. So, it was, I always say, like, everything that I'm doing right now, I cannot take credit. Like, God is the author. Yeah. And he's the one that keeps directing me and leading me. Yes, I've done the work. Yes, I've taken the steps. Yes, I've done it afraid because it's so scary and it's so hard sometimes. And, you have to just keep taking those next steps. But he was the one that brought everything into my life. I never thought I'd be a writer. I never thought I'd be an artist, and here I have a thriving Etsy shop. And I was like, what? Like, people are buying my artwork. Like and buying my books and, all this stuff. It's like, but yeah, just, from those very early beginnings of just, I think, you often say this, what's in your hand, just doing the thing that God had given me to do. And to be honest, we gave away more books in the beginning than we sold because it was a ministry and it was birthed out of my heart to help people.
Right.
And that's typically what my books, it's either a teaching type book or it's a testimonial, Christian living type book, but it's out of what God has done in the depths of my heart. So right before I launched into speaking to teen girls and, publishing my first book, God did a huge, huge, deep healing in my own heart from some sexual abuse I had in my past. My grandma was murdered when I was 8 years old, and I had to deal with those really deep emotional things and, forgive her murderer and forgive the boy that, had abused me and, do the hard work and go to counseling. And after I came on the other side, I was like, I can't not share what God has done in my life. And a lot of that then birthed into the ministry that I had with teen girls. And I've now passed that on to someone else. But then now what I share with authors and with artists, it's what God has done in my life and how he's taken me from not even thinking that I could write. Like, I think you have a similar story of like never thinking you're going to write a book to having now authored over 40 books, having a publishing company, having, a membership where I help writers every day launch and, publish books that are now impacting I don't know how many people, and
exactly.
It's just amazing what God will do. But it all started back with doing that deep work, that deep work. And I think that's part of your story too.
Well, absolutely. And I think it's that kingdom principle, right? Of be fruitful first and then multiply. And whether it's in your artwork or in your business or whatever, I think that the kingdom shows up in our life when we're faithful with the things that God's put in our life. We're faithful to our journey, faithful to him. We till the ground that's in front of us. And as we do, just like in Matthew 25, then there's growth and multiplication that begins to happen in my life and in your life. And that's what, when I think about you and I look at your life now, as you see kind of the trajectory of what's going on, that's what you're starting to see. It's like all these seeds that you planted so long ago are now sprouting in so many different.
Well, hey there, it's Matt, and I hope you're enjoying this podcast interview with my friend Shelly Hitz. Listen, Shelly and I have been friends for a while. She's been a member of the Creative to Thrive Artist Mentoring Program, and now she's come out with a brand new course called Etsy Entrepreneur, which is really an incredible benefit from her own journey of learning to sell her work on Etsy and really thriving in that. The course has got 4 main parts. The first part is kind of all about getting started and the legalese about how to sell on Etsy. The second is all about digitizing your artwork and getting it ready to go on a website like Etsy. The third is all about creating and selling products, so prints, cards, mugs, other products, selling collections. And then the fourth is all about copyright, when to consider licensing, wholesale, and some of the other next steps that really make a difference when you're selling on Etsy. Listen, if you're thinking about selling on Etsy, I really want to encourage you to check out Shelly's course called the Etsy Entrepreneur. It's available right now in the show notes here in the podcast. Just click the link and you can get started with it right now. All right, let's get back to the podcast.
Bring everybody kind of into your world right now because, so many people think, well, I'm an artist, so I do just this. But, and again, I think this is why we connect so much, as friends, because I can totally understand your brain. We were talking earlier before this started and just about how ideas, if you've got one, you've got 50 and it's like, they're all coming, but you mentioned, you've got a membership opportunity for a community for authors where you're helping them. You're writing incredible books. And then you're also now a little bit newer thing for you in the last couple of years, but coming back, I guess, to your own artwork and seeing that really thrive. So walk us through, what has that been like and how are you managing all of this in your life now?
Yeah, so I like to say it's happened in layers because when I started all the art stuff, people started asking me Shelly, how are you doing everything? And it is a lot, but I talk about it in layers. And so I love the acronym. I don't know who came up with it first. Focus, follow one course until successful. And so what God was really led me to do is, first I started with websites, and then, got the, that under my belt. That was successful. Then books and the publishing company. And, that was successful. And then I had systems. So, I developed systems and ways of doing repeatable tasks that then it doesn't take me as much time, and I hire people as I go. But then, I added the coaching, the author coaching, and, helping writers. And then, I started adding my own artwork, and now I teach art on, online, and now I'm even mentoring artists. And so, it's like one layer at a time. But I have probably, a team of 6 virtual assistants. And then I also have a team of like maybe 5 people in my membership Author Audience Academy that help me in various, various ways. But I have a team. I built a team. And so anything that I don't personally have to do, they do for me. So they edit the podcast, they format my blog posts, they do all these things. But as I'm successful, I reinvest the money into people, into, a team that can then help me. So then it frees me up, because I'm a creative and I'm an entrepreneur. So I always have new ideas, and they're so fun, and I want to do new ideas, and so they can help keep everything running, and doing the things. And then I'm freed up to do something new. And so it's been an amazing journey. I am at a place though, where I'm training new people, and I'm feeling stretched because there's a lot going on. And any given day I could have so many different things coming at me. But again, I'm developing new systems, I'm training them, and in a few months I will have more breathing space again.
Yeah. Because I think that's one of the big fears that I had when I started all that I'm doing now. Again, same kind of boat. You've got so much going on. Because of other things, other businesses I've been involved in the past, the whole team thing for me was probably the biggest barrier. In fact, I really resisted it. We had over 300 members in my Creative to Thrive mentoring program before I even let anybody help me with billing and customer service, which was completely stupid. I mean, but it was, it was just that fear kind of hanging on inside of me. And I think once I could begin to let go and bring other people into the picture, like you're saying, it really has allowed me and you both to do the things that we're good at. Because I think if a creative and an entrepreneur are not focused in those areas, then your creative spark will die and it will wither. And I think, going back to the thing that I always try to, say, do only the things that you can do. And for me, I know in my business, I'm the only one that can create my art. I'm the only one that can do my podcast. I'm the only one that can write the content for my books. But everything else I can get help with. And once you learn to realize that, it's like so freeing to grow your business so that you can continue to stay in your sweet spot.
Yeah. And at the beginning, I bootstrapped it. Like I was a solopreneur and I did everything. And I made sure I was profitable in the beginning so that I wouldn't fail quick, because a lot of times, you're investing money. And if you're not careful, especially if you don't have another income, like my husband and I, we do this full time. We don't have another income. We don't have any other, like we're both in this together. We're full-time entrepreneurs. So we had to really, and we don't use debt for our business. We've been debt-free the entire time. So it's like, if we don't have it, we don't have it. And so I really had to use wisdom, especially in the beginning of what to invest in and what to do. And there's certain, priorities and certain things. And then as we grew, reinvest it in. And now we're at a place where, when I started my art business, I already had a thriving business. So I already had, some income that I could already invest into team and people. And when I wrote my Brushstrokes workbook, I hired a graphic designer to do that stuff for me. And it was able to get done in 6 weeks, 168-page workbook.
Exactly.
Done in 6 weeks. The only way it was done in 6 weeks, I hired someone that did all the formatting and InDesign. She helped me with all of the, the graphic design side of things. I could have done it, but it would have taken me probably 6 months.
Well, and people, you always hear, oh, I can't afford it. I'm like, you can't afford not to do it, because you are worth so much more in your business when you're writing content or creating art or whatever it is that you do, you can't afford not to have a team. The other thing I was just going to say, Shelley, I love when I look at your life, I see you creating products, not just because you know they'll sell, but you're creating products and resources and pieces of art, obviously too, that are coming out of your journey, out of your authentic place with what God's doing in your life. And again, it's that thing of be fruitful first and then multiply. Talk a little bit about that, because there's always a challenge, I think, for all of us that want to grow businesses to just do things because we know they'll sell, as opposed to doing things that really are fruit of our life and trusting that those are going to bless in the marketplace. Talk about that balance.
Yeah, I've always believed in the authenticity of not just doing something because it is like the hot topic, or, because, I can research it and I can create something, but because, it's something I've lived. So when I coach writers and authors, I don't try to coach fiction authors because I haven't done that. I've written all nonfiction books, and I'm, the marketing and all that stuff, it will help you, but I don't promise, I don't try to tell you that I'm going to do that. And, with my art and, things, the lettering is what really has been the basis of my art journey over the last couple of years, my visual art journey. And so that's really, from my own experience and from what I've done, that's where I've really invested a lot of time in to creating products or to teaching classes on Skillshare and to creating books. I have now 2 books on lettering. And the funny thing about it is, I didn't even try to get into this whole area of lettering. I was writing my book, Broken Crayons Still Color, which again, that was not my idea either. I had a publicist at the time that she saw a meme on Facebook that I put on there, Broken Crayons Still Color. I used my life verse, Isaiah 61:1, and I told some of my testimony, and she's like, Shelley, that book, we have to get that book out to women's groups and churches and everything. And I'm like, what book? She's like, Broken Crayons Still Color. I'm like, that's not a book. That's a meme.
Exactly.
And it was like, all the big successes in my life, they're God ideas. So, God had me write that book. Well, I was writing that book and I was like, adult coloring book pages would be awesome for this book. And it would help people process the deep information. And so I was going to hire someone. And one day in my spirit, not an audible voice, I just sensed the Lord say, you do it. I was like, I can't do it. I'm not creative. And this was just a little over 2 years ago. It was June 2016. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do it. And there wasn't too many classes or resources at the time about how to do it. Now there's more, but I was just like, I bought a lettering book and I went to a class on how to do some different repeating patterns and to drawing some things. And one day I just sat down. I had a couple broken crayons out there as my reference. And I wrote out the, Broken Crayons Still Color. I was like, oh, that's not too bad. It's pretty good. And I ended up illustrating 7 coloring book pages for that book.
Wow.
And it led me into something in me came alive with lettering, with words. I'm a word person. I'm a speaker. I'm a communicator. I'm a writer. I'm a word person. And so with words and then, with the creative process, it was just like something went off in me. And it was also a form of self-care that I didn't even know I needed. Being a recovering workaholic, it's easy for me just to work and create and do things. But this was something that filled me. And it was a gift from God. And it was something that was, everything. It was just originated from Him. But then, I just practiced every day. And it was very authentic then for me to start teaching it. And now I have a couple books and, I have a workbook. And so it's just been really exciting to see, just where that has all led.
Yes. I always say follow the favor. And I think that's what I see in your life. It's just continue to follow the favor. Whatever God is breathing on, get involved with that,
Yes.
So many of us are just trained to, God bless my mess, oh God, here's what I want to do. And it's like, no, if you can learn to watch what God is blessing in your life, where the favor is, where the flow is, and cooperate with that, it goes so much faster and it's so much more fulfilling and it's so much, I don't know, it's just a whole different way of doing life. And I'm just so happy to see that happening in your life. I know that tons of people are going to want to get in touch with you. There's obviously your website at ShellyHitz.com. You're on Instagram and Etsy and Facebook. Anything I'm forgetting as for a best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you go to my website, ShellyHitz.com, it's ShellyHitz.com, then it will lead you to my site for my art. It will lead you to my site for authors and, my Broken Crayon Still Color stuff. So all of that is right up there on that website. That's the best place, but connect with me on Facebook, on Instagram. I'd love to connect with you.
Yeah. Well, Shelley, it really has been a pleasure these last months. I guess, how long have we known each other? I'm trying to think. It's been a couple of years
I think a little over a year and a half.
Yeah. It's just been such a pleasure getting to watch your journey and just see it all unfold. And I can't wait to see in another year and 5 years what for both of us. What's going to
happen. I tell my husband, I'm not even able to it's almost like I'm not even able to imagine what could happen in a year, because now I'm selling wholesale. I am, I have a thriving Etsy shop. I'm digitizing, and my artwork has been licensed for 2 book covers. It's just all this stuff I never thought was possible. I'm I can't even make a 5-year business plan, because God has stuff that I don't even know, but I love it. I keep hearing your voice in my head saying, this is your new normal. This is your new normal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the kingdom working normally inside of us. And well, awesome. Well, Shelley, thanks so much for being on today. And listen, if you're listening to the podcast, go to ShellyHitz.com, connect with her on her website, social media, be a part of her community, get a course. Just if you're a writer, you're a creative, she's going to be somebody that's
Hey, thanks so much for spending a few minutes with me today on the podcast. Listen,
Shelley,
I hope it's been a huge encouragement to you on your journey as an artist. Hey, also, before you leave, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the other episodes of the Thriving Christian Artist podcast. And also, be sure to connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, or at my website, which is matttommeymentoring.com. Until next time, remember, you were created to thrive. Bye-bye.